In the world of themed entertainment, scaring your customers is serious business. And there's no one that does it better than the designers of haunted attractions. Alongside teams of fabricators, artists, and actors, these talented people bring your nightmares to life with terrifying efficiency. Whether it's a zombie apocalypse, a real-life slasher film, or a haunted Victorian mansion, these attractions allow you to face your deepest fears by bringing you right into the story to experience them firsthand. The environments are completely safe and only simulate dangerous or scary scenarios, but they are carefully crafted to feel as real as possible, and they offer a unique kind of thrill that is in high demand. It is estimated that 40 to 50 million Americans seek out these chilling experiences every year, representing nearly 20% of the entire adult population, and the global fear-based attraction business has rapidly grown into a billion-dollar industry. At the same time, the art of designing and building these attractions has also evolved into a precise science, with well-established techniques rooted in architecture and psychology. And although the current market is dominated by large theme park chains with their impressive Halloween events, much of the design philosophy was originally pioneered by independent haunted house builders, with many of them still doing design work for these large corporate events today. This all began to take shape around 100 years ago, beginning in the 1930s, when the very first walk-through haunted houses began to appear around the United States. These early attractions were quite basic and low cost, but they gained popularity as annual charity fundraisers, and they gradually spread across the US, along with other Halloween traditions like parades and trick-or-treating. This continued over the next few decades, and by the start of the 1960s, local communities of DIY hobbyists were now building their own haunted houses at home, and at the same time, professional haunts with more elaborate theming and paid admission were also gaining traction as small businesses. Both of these groups helped to establish building techniques and design practices that were becoming standard all around the country, but the entire concept of a haunted house was about to be taken to the next level at the end of the decade. In 1969, the Walt Disney Company would introduce the Haunted Mansion Dark Ride at Disneyland in California, which is often considered to be the first large-scale commercial haunt attraction. This is in spite of the fact that it differed substantially from its predecessors, being an amusement ride with vehicles and a track system instead of a walkthrough experience. Nevertheless, the Haunted Mansion set a precedent, and it paved the way for the future of the entire industry due to its scale, extensive theming, and use of special effects. The years that followed saw a heightened demand for fear-based entertainment, and this sparked a more competitive market where independent haunt designers opened more attractions that were bigger and scarier, with each one trying to offer something new that would set it apart from the rest. This was intensified by the surge in popularity of slasher films and the horror genre through the 1970s and 80s, and haunted houses began to push the envelope even further, with more intense experiences that deviated away from family-friendly themes and into the era of gore and violence. The success of the growing market also grabbed the attention of other large theme park companies, which led to the introduction of annual Halloween events at many of the major theme parks, beginning with Knott's Berry Farm in 1973, and then followed later by Six Flags in 1986, Universal in 1991, and Cedar Fair in 1997. Each event would feature several haunted houses as the primary draw for the crowds, now more commonly referred to as haunted mazes or scare mazes, to cover a wider range of possible themes. Most of them were designed and built by independent haunt owners who were hired by the parks as industry experts. However, the quality tended to be noticeably lower than the standalone attractions, due to budget constraints and higher capacity demands. Despite this, the mega-scale haunt events quickly dominated the market with their ability to pull huge attendance numbers, and they have only gained in size and popularity until today. There are currently around 1,200 independent haunt attractions that operate in the United States, alongside 3,000 charity events and 300 Halloween events that are run at theme parks. However, the parks are responsible for generating 40% of the total business revenue, with a large portion of this amount coming from only a handful of the largest operators. In terms of attendance numbers, around 86% of attractions will see less than 10,000 guests per season, but one in the top 3% might bring in more than 20,000 guests, and a mega event at a theme park can easily exceed this figure in just a single night during peak season. One of the keys to this huge success is the fact that haunted houses fit right in at theme parks, among the other high-thrill attractions like roller coasters and drop towers. While amusement rides provide physical thrills with their high speed, height, and g-forces, the haunted houses provide more of a psychological thrill. Both allow us to experience simulated danger in an environment that we know is safe, and although they scare us in different ways, The fear response that is triggered in our brains is very similar. This includes the sudden release of adrenaline, which increases our heart rate, gives us a burst of energy, and heightens our senses, as well as the release of dopamine and endorphins, which we associate with feelings of pleasure and reward. The parts of the brain responsible for emotions and memory are also activated, and so we often remember scary situations as highly emotional events that stick with us in vivid detail. Additionally, going through a haunted house as a group with family or friends can further all these effects, because it becomes a shared experience that strengthens bonds and builds trust. It also differs from something like a roller coaster in that you have to physically move through the attraction on your own, making you an active participant in the experience, where everything feels more personal than just being along for the ride. Of course, everyone's individual reaction to fear will vary widely. Some people love to chase the thrill while others avoid it, but a well-designed haunted house tries to provide something for just about everyone. When designing any kind of building or attraction, it is often said that form follows function, and the same is also true for a haunted house. Here, the primary function is to scare visitors, and every element is designed to serve this purpose. This can include things like jump scares and disturbing scenery, but it also extends more generally to creating feelings of discomfort, vulnerability, and anxiety. In the field of architecture, there are many rules and best practices that are often used to make spaces feel more comfortable and inviting, and a lot of them can be flipped upside down and reversed to achieve the exact opposite. This all begins outside in the queue line before you even enter the attraction. Most amusement rides have a switchback queue design that zigzags back and forth to conserve space, but for a haunted house, it is preferable to have a more stretched out and meandering queue that takes you away from a crowded area and makes you feel more isolated. People tend to feel safer in groups, so forcing them to be separated and having open space on all sides can add a feeling of vulnerability, especially at night when there is low visibility and you can't see what is around you. This puts your senses on high alert, allowing you to be scared more easily, and it starts to build suspense as you are taken out of a familiar environment and there is uncertainty about what is going to happen next. Dimming the lights, adding fog with fog machines, and playing an eerie soundtrack will all contribute to the effect, and introducing theming that begins to tell the storyline will also help to set the scene. As guests get closer to the haunted house, it is ideal for the queue to climb up a slight incline, or to have the building facade on a hill at a higher elevation. A large imposing building can be intimidating on its own, but placing it above eye level so that you are forced to look up at it can make it feel even more threatening. The final stretch should also include a straight section at the very end of the queue, so that guests have to approach the house head on. This builds a lot of tension during the final moments in line as you make your way toward the entrance, but more importantly, it also gives a clear view of other guests getting scared as they enter the house ahead of you. One of the most effective ways to make people feel fear is to let them see other people getting scared, so this is a sure way to put guests on edge and prepare them to be scared themselves as they enter the attraction. The whole purpose of the queue is to function as both a physical and psychological transition that brings you into the experience, and it is an integral component of the haunted attraction, rather than just a place to wait in line. On the inside, the layout of rooms and passageways is intentionally designed to be as confusing as possible, so you cannot keep track of where you are or where you're going. There are twists and turns in every direction, and walls oriented at different angles that limit how far you can see, and the rooms are often connected by dark hallways, so you don't have a clear sightline from one to the next. The goal is to remove any sense of predictability, so it feels like you are moving through a random maze that keeps you searching for the path forward the entire time. This keeps your mind distracted and takes advantage of your natural instinct to look for an escape route in a dangerous or scary situation. Every time you enter a new space in the house, your brain is going to be scanning the environment trying to figure out which way to go, and this leaves you vulnerable to get caught off guard by a jump scare. The exit might be placed in a different location in each room or hidden out of view to keep things unpredictable, which can also contribute to a fear of claustrophobia or being trapped. Your brain craves consistency and is constantly trying to identify patterns, so taking this away will leave you feeling anxious and uncomfortable. Instead of having all the rooms in the house be the same size and shape, they instead take you from a cramped hallway into a wide open room, and then back into a small confined space again, so you have to continuously adjust to your surroundings. More intense attractions might even have hidden passageways with narrow openings, or tunnels with low ceilings that you need to get on your hands and knees to crawl through, which force you into vulnerable positions to escape. This kind of thing can greatly reduce capacity though, so you are far more likely to encounter them at independent attractions rather than at theme parks. Capacity is one of the most important considerations when designing a haunted house, so even though the layout is meant to be confusing, the path generally still needs to be clear and easy for guests to follow. Minimizing sightlines can help by allowing many groups to move through the layout at the same time while still feeling isolated from one another, but unlike an amusement ride with vehicles that are controlled by a computer, it can be a big challenge to keep guests moving in the right direction at a constant pace. A standalone haunted house might allow groups of 4 to 8 people to enter every 30 seconds, which would give an average capacity of around 720 guests per hour. However, many theme parks need to push this further by allowing a near continuous stream of people through the attraction. This generally has a negative impact on the overall experience, but it is often necessary to handle the larger crowds when operating alongside amusement rides that may have 2 or 3 times the capacity. Smaller group sizes and larger gaps are always the preferred option to maintain a sense of isolation, and to give unexpected scares that won't be spoiled by seeing the next group up ahead. So to help keep guests moving efficiently, many haunted houses employ a scare forward strategy that aims to scare you from behind, above, and to the side, rather than from the front. Every person reacts to fear differently, and some people might want to run through the layout as fast as possible, while others might become frozen or want to turn around and run backwards. So scaring the group forward attempts to keep everyone moving and guide you in the right direction. This is mostly achieved with jump scares, which are really the heart of the whole experience. A good jump scare will give you a shot of adrenaline over and over again, and it's all thanks to the teams of dedicated scare actors. A large haunted attraction might have 50 to 100 scare actors, who spend hours putting on elaborate costumes with the help of makeup artists and costume designers, and they are determined to scare, shock, disturb, and entertain. This human element is very important, because it adds a level of chaos and unpredictability that cannot be achieved with static scenes and animatronics alone. You should be able to go through the same attraction multiple times and always have a unique experience, where you might encounter different actors and scares in new locations. The scare actors are the driving force in creating fear, so every part of the haunted house is designed to let them do their job effectively. While the maze of rooms might seem random and confusing from the inside, the layout is actually designed strategically to create a network of passageways outside of the rooms, where the actors can move throughout the attraction without being seen. This allows them to appear right beside you out of nowhere, only to disappear into the darkness, and then reappear in a different location to scare you again. The rooms are typically arranged to form loops around the inner passageways, so the actors can quickly jump from one room to another, and access them from different sides. And even though you can't see these secret areas while going through the house, the actors can still see you from the outside, because the walls are full of holes and hidden openings that allow them to monitor the guests at all times. They can watch how you are reacting to a specific scene and wait for the perfect opportunity to jump in, or they can keep an eye on guest behavior and watch for safety concerns. Inside the rooms, there are typically many scare pockets or scare boxes where the actors can either hide or play out a scene while waiting for a scare. These can be as simple as hidden recesses along the walls, or they can be entire rooms or cells that guests can see into as they pass by. The scare boxes can be accessed from the back passages so the actors can move between them discreetly, and the guest pathway will often loop around them to allow the actors to scare a group multiple times from one location. Having an actor that appears to be confined to one of these cells, or even just restrained in some way, can make them be perceived as more dangerous, and it can create a really good scare if they suddenly jump towards you or are able to break free. The art of setting up a good jump scare is all about building suspense and subverting expectations, so even when you know it is coming, you will still be caught off guard by the location, timing, or delivery. An actor might appear low to the ground, up high, or even above you. They might be disguised as part of the scenery, or they might just be there to distract you, so another actor can pop out somewhere else. On the other hand, having no jump scare at all can also be a tactic to build fear and anxiety by making the guests anticipate something that never happens. A room can be set up in a way to make you think that a scare is coming in a specific place, like an obvious opening or part of the scenery where someone could easily be hiding, but really there's nothing there. This kind of deception works well with repetition, where the same element is repeated throughout a room or the entire house to establish a pattern of nothing happening with it, but that pattern might be broken just once with an actual jump scare, so you are left anticipating it again every time that element reappears. Although the scenery and theming in a haunted house can contribute to a sudden scare, it is typically more about creating an environment that induces fear by making you uncomfortable. Every room will generally lean into a specific theme that is associated with a common phobia, like a fear of monsters, spiders, snakes, blood and gore, medical procedures, enclosed spaces, the dark or the unknown, and so many others. The sets are carefully crafted to look as realistic as possible, and many of the props are often authentic, being sourced from places like estate sales, junkyards, closed businesses, and industrial salvage. Old abandoned items are usually in poor condition, so they fit right into the haunting aesthetic, whereas anything that is built from scratch needs a lot more work to make it look like it has been left there for decades. This involves an intensive process called distressing, where artists will scratch, gouge, and roughen surfaces with tools and abrasive materials, apply layers of glue, paint, stain, and gritty textures, and then add dust, debris, and cobwebs, all to make it feel like you are in a decaying and potentially hazardous environment. To really make the rooms come to life, many haunted houses utilize mechanical animations that add physical movements to the sets. These might be anything from a showpiece animatronic to a shaking coffin or an electric chair, but they can also include more subtle effects like a moving piece of furniture or a doll turning its head by itself. A haunt that relies more heavily on animations can easily have more than 100 of them throughout the attraction, and they are typically powered by compressed air using a central pneumatic system. Some can also be powered by electric motors, depending on their size and complexity, but compressed air allows for fast, powerful movements, with simple mechanisms that can be built and maintained in-house. There are things that can jump, lunge, spin, and shake, and many can also be used as effective jump scares, getting right up into your personal space. However, the animations are not intended to be a replacement for scare actors, but rather to add kinetic energy to a space in unsettling ways. In addition to all the scenery and theming in a haunted house, the rooms themselves can also be constructed to enhance the level of immersion. The walls can be sloped inward to make a space feel enclosed like a cave, or built on an angle to make use of forced perspective. The floors can be slanted to make guests feel disoriented and off balance, and the ceilings can be built at varying heights to make the rooms feel small and claustrophobic, or very tall and narrow. Some haunted houses may have open ceilings, particularly ones that are temporary or put together inside an existing building like at theme parks, in which case it is important for the walls and theming to extend higher, so the immersion is not broken by looking up. Having scenery elements placed up high and also down low to the ground helps to ensure that there is always something to see in all directions, even when the view in front might be obstructed by other guests. Other tools that can greatly affect the way you perceive a space are mirrors and optical illusions. There are dozens of techniques to trick your brain in different ways by manipulating visual cues, but just a simple, well-placed mirror can make a wall appear invisible, make an object appear to be levitating, or make an actor appear in a different location. These illusions are often used for deception and misdirection tactics, where they either conceal something or draw your attention to one specific area, but then surprise and startle you with a reveal. To go along with all the sights in a haunted house, there can also be physical sensations that contribute to the overall feel of the environment. A spongy material on the floor can make it seem like you are walking on wet marshy ground in a swamp, for example, or a gravel pathway can make it feel like you are really outside in the woods or stepping on bugs in a dark cave. A rope bridge that sways under your feet can add a sense of danger in a jungle scene, even if it's only a few inches off the ground, or the entire floor in a room might be designed to move and really throw you off balance. This can be achieved by suspending the floor from above with cables or chains for a more subtle swaying effect, or the floor can be built on an airbag motion platform for more precise control and faster movements. The airbag system is also able to give a good jump scare by suddenly dropping when guests are walking over it, so for a brief instant, it feels like the floor is falling out from beneath you. The goal with all of this is to overwhelm your senses and leave you more susceptible to fear, and there are many other ways to affect your sense of sight, hearing, touch, and smell all at the same time. For sight, a shocking or disturbing scene might be enough on its own. However, lighting also plays an important role. The darkness can be very effective for limiting your vision and controlling what you can see, but having variations in lighting with a mix of brighter and darker rooms will force your eyes to constantly readjust, which can leave you feeling disoriented and vulnerable every time you enter a dimly lit space. Fog machines and effect lighting like strobes and lasers all serve a similar purpose as well, and they can do a lot to enhance a scene without relying on darkness alone. Adding tons of movement to this with actors and animations can really be anxiety-inducing because there is simply too much going on to take it all in at once. For hearing, many haunted houses will have a powerful audio system that plays a soundtrack and disturbing sound effects throughout the attraction, and the scare actors will also use their voices and physical objects to startle you with sudden noises. Things like metal bars and chains are often built into the sets that can be struck or rattled to create loud, unpleasant sounds. And there are endless ways to get creative with handheld noisemakers, like a can of nuts and bolts, an air horn, or modified power tools with all the dangerous parts safely removed. If a compressed air system is being used, then pneumatic hammer tools are an option as well, and the mechanical sounds of the animations themselves can also contribute to the eerie soundscape. For touch, there can be hanging curtains made of plastic or fabric that you need to pass through between the rooms, which also act as a visual barrier, and unsettling props might also be hung from the ceiling that will swing around and brush up against you as guests push them out of the way. Something as simple as hanging fishing line is highly effective because it will be invisible in the dark, but it will feel like spiderwebs or bugs touching your head as you walk underneath. Narrow hallways can encourage interactions with strange textures on the walls, and things that protrude and touch your legs might feel like rats or snakes at your feet. But even just the idea or anticipation of touch can be effective to make someone uncomfortable when it comes to certain phobias, so there does not always need to be any real contact. Lastly, for smell, it has become increasingly common for haunted attractions to use scent sprayers and fog machine additives to produce awful odors. There are dozens of scents readily available for just about any type of environment, and they take immersion to a foul level while completing the attack on your senses. Haunted houses are constantly implementing new technology in creative ways. However, it tends to be the older, time-tested techniques that get the biggest reaction from guests. A state-of-the-art attraction can have digital projections and a network of automated sensors to trigger sound and visuals, but it's the classic effects and jump scares that are most effective at producing fear. Of course, there will always be a small number of people who are not scared by anything in a haunted house, and so it is also important to have a wow factor that goes beyond fear to create a memorable experience for everyone. This might include the sheer scale and attention to detail, exceptional costumes and theatrics, an innovative special effect, or an impressive one-of-a-kind animatronic. To have the highest chance of terrifying every guest though, the most important element that brings the whole experience together is a cohesive theme. After all, haunted houses are ultimately themed attractions, and the entire concept fundamentally hinges on suspension of disbelief. The idea that we can ignore the reality of the situation and willingly go along with the story and events, even when we know they are not real. The same applies when reading a fantasy book or watching a horror film, and in the same way that plot holes and inconsistencies can interrupt your suspension of disbelief in those mediums, they can also have a similar impact here. If you are going through an attraction with an oceanic theme that features sea monsters and suddenly there's a room with scary clowns, then it is going to feel out of place and make you question why there are clowns in this kind of setting. Even if this only lasts for a second, it still takes you out of the moment and reminds you that what you are seeing is fake, and that can be the difference between having a fear reaction or not being scared at all. There are some haunted houses that blend a variety of themes together like this, and they can be quite effective. However, they tend to lean into the spectacle and wonder just as much as the scares. For the most purely terrifying and immersive experience, an attraction will have a more concise theme with a well-constructed narrative that gradually unfolds. The designers use all the elements to bring you into the story, from the layout and set design to the special effects and jump scares, and each scare actor plays a specific role in telling that story as they guide you through it. Combining all these things together is the key if you want to build a haunted house that maximizes fear. If you are still here at the end of the video, then that means you have made it to the exit, so please consider hitting subscribe on your way out, and thanks for watching.